Gratitude is one of the most powerful human emotions. Once expressed, it changes attitude, brightens outlook, and broadens our perspective. Happy morning to one and all present here. Let's start this day with an attitude of gratitude. Let's be thankful for our life and things that are still going well. Welcome to the fourth day of Faculty Development Program on promoting quality culture for quality enhancement, a quality assurance measure by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Jyotirniwas College Autonomous. Today, our focus will be on a panel discussion with eminent and competent panelists on quality enhancement practices in campus culture. It is with great pleasure and honor, let me introduce the moderator for the day, Mr. Dinesh. Mr. Dinesh is a criminologist and an international leader with education and experience in the international circuit. Dinesh is decorated with many honors over the years for the commitment and the effectiveness in driving and getting positive results. Among the many, the Internal Loss Prevention magazine mentioned him under two categories, Outstanding Community Champion and Social Justice Warrior. He received the Indian Achiever Award for Professional Achievement and Nation Building. He is the only Indian and Asian to win the OSAC Distinguished Global Achievement Award 2020 from Washington, D.C. The third Indian to receive the Disaster Recovery International Award for Program Leader from United Kingdom. May I now request Mr. Dinesh, on behalf of our beloved sister and the IQAC team, to moderate the panel discussion on quality enhancement practices in campus culture.
Thank you, Doctor. That was quite some nice words on me over there. Hope I'm audible with everyone.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yes, Dinesh.
Thank you. Well, it's even more interesting to know about our speakers for the morning. It gives me great pride to have few known colleagues over here and to whom we have interacted much as well to bring some knowledge over here with the student community. Before that, I would like to thank Dr. Sister Lalita Thomas and all the members who are involved in the capacities to do this initiative, and we wish success for this initiative as well. To be honest, I have about 2 papers of introduction. So that's the quality and that's the extensive level of work that's been done by our speakers. And please just give me some time. I'm going to just read through it because it's all the accomplishment that's done over the years. To start up with, I'm going to talk about Professor Lisa Short. Thank you, Professor, for joining. I know it's the early days. I know it's early years over there. I presume it's around 4:30 in the morning or 5.
It is.
Thank you. So I was about to read your introduction and just. Great. So Professor Lisa Short is a founder and director, a mind shifter, change maker, collaborator, digital technologist, international keynote speaker, is an ambassador, strategic advisor, academic research, involvement, blockchain, digital assets, data, cyber, and information specialist. She's also a designed ecosystem strategy and execution advocate for women in digital technology, cyber, and security. Well, it doesn't stop here. She's UN Women UK delegate in the United Nations 65th and 66th Commission on the Status of Women. She's the Chief Research Officer and Group Chair in the Global Foundation for Cyber Studies and Research, Washington, D.C. She's a Program Committee, European Symposium of Usable Security from Germany. She's a member of Nevitas, Careers and Industry Division, which is basically from Information Technology Course Committee, for postgraduates and for masters. She is on the advisory board of International Cybersecurity in UK. She's an advisory board of GSASF in a Digital World UK, an advisory board, a Neurocyber UK. There's a lot that I can just go reading about Dr. Professor, and she has authored a couple of books as well, and she's also in an as a special interest in the Security Institute as well. So, welcome, Professor, and be happy to have you among us to have your knowledge shared with us, the student community.
Thank you.
Having said that, I would like to talk about the next speaker, which is Mr. Bala Subramaniam, called as Bala. Bala is a very seasoned business and technology leader with a great track record of building organizational capabilities and creating value through technology-enabled business transformation with proven expertise in leadership and in devising and effectuating policies aimed at building and managing multinational captives. Well, Bala has more experience. I would say, like, he's a global captive in global captive centers in banking, financial services, insurance, software, telecom, higher education functions, and more of merger acquisitions. Presently, Bala is a founder and CEO of Strata Infirmity Inc., a global consulting firm in USA, UK, and India. Well, Bala works closely with Ministry of Education, Government of India on multiple assignments on a honorary and advisory role, which includes the following. He is a chairman of Indian Institute of Information Technology, IIIT Sri City, which is under the Ministry of Education, Government of India. He is the executive committee member of CDE, Anna University, Chennai. He is a board director, Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development by MEITY, Government of India. He is a conveyor, skill development and startup, FICCI, Tamil Nadu. He is the National Board of Advisor, MSME and Startup Forum, Bharat. He is the chairman of NASCOM, GCC Council, and member of GCC Council between 2017 and 19. He was also the vice chairman of NASCOM for Tamil Nadu and Kerala between 2015 and 17. Not only that, Bala was a Senate member at Madurai Kamaraj University, appointed by His Excellency the Governor of Tamil Nadu. There's a lot that I can read through Bala. Bala, I think I just finished one page. There's one more to go. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to go with the next speaker. Welcome, Bala. So, John. John is a very familiar name over the education sector in terms of campus to culture is a topic that he has spoken in many places. John is a GSA professional and is a vibrant leader for over 17 years in security operations, intelligence, risk assessment, command center operations, training and development. Currently, he's the associate director and he leads the Joint Security Intelligence Center for Cognizant. Prior to joining Cognizant, John had stints in various security roles at global organizations like BNY Mellon, FLSmith, Fidelity, and GRTs. John is a gold medalist in his bachelor's in the University of Madras. He teaches a lot of subjects which is related to his masters and PGs, and which also includes situational awareness and life safety from various colleges and universities. He's a passionate public speaker, career coach, and consultant as well. Which sets apart from John is that he's a lifesaver with American Heart Association, and is a trained and certified as well in life safety and CPR. And he has also trained about 12,500 civilians in first aid and CPR apart from his regular work, which separates John in his regular activities. So John, thank you for joining with us this morning. Happy to have you. So with that great start, I would like to open up with a basic question to all the three speakers, which is what resonates to your mind when you hear the term quality first and culture next. So I would like to start up with John. John, if you could.
Hey, thanks, Dinesh. Thank you everyone for bringing us here. Very happy to share the dais with Professor Lisa and Bala. Thank you, Dinesh, for bringing me here. So excited to talk to you all. I hope I'm audible. Um, See, when it comes to quality and culture, um, I look at few things, right? Especially from the student fraternity. Uh, but before even coming to the student fraternity, we are talking about the faculties, the teachers, the lecturers, the professors, the gurus, right? Uh, in the academic institution, there are few things that we do consciously or unconsciously. The most important thing is building responsible citizens of the country, right? Now, in everything that we do, both words and both values are ingrained. We are building the next generation leaders. We are building the core members of a family, right? The family resonates into neighborhood, neighborhood resonates into a society. And above all, the institution also builds brand ambassadors of the institution who are going out to various organizations, being entrepreneurs, being societal leaders, change makers, innovators. So I think when it comes when I think about quality and culture, uh, it is very organizational oriented. It kind of transcends from every individual that comes out of the institution, right? Now, I'll give you an example of how I see when I lead my team, and then those team members also represent themselves at various other forums and associations. I always tell them that you are the brand ambassadors of Cognizant, right? You're the brand ambassadors of our team, the Joint Security Intelligence Center. You're the brand ambassadors of your fraternity, right? It might be various fraternities that they represent. So it is very important for you to transcend the quality that you're built of, right? And then the culture that you come from, and it kind of everything that you deliver. These two aspects of values are delivered along with your actions. So it is very important that these are ingrained at the student level, at the institution level, the environment they spend 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. That is where they spend the most time, where they can be groomed and rooted into this both quality and culture. And that is how I look at it, Dinesh.
Thanks, John. Rightly said. So Bala, what are your thoughts on that?
Hey, thank you, Dinesh. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Bala, you are.
Awesome. Very good morning to everybody. Professor Dr. Lisa, my friend John, Dinesh, and the management of Jyoti Nivas College and the dedicated faculty members. A very good morning, warm welcome. So there's been a great experience to meet you all virtually. So I'll just take a step back. The interesting part of my role is being, fortunately, I have been playing a triangular role. So I'm a leader in the industry. And fortunately, I'm part of the academia because managing the IIIT Sri City as a chairman and also part of the National Education Council body. And I'm also industry and also part of various government positions, honorary roles. So when I'm trying to connect all the three dots, when I reflect towards a large country like India, having worked with the Western side of the world, last 1 decade of experience in EduTech organization, which is a Blackboard. I was a CEO of Blackboard. So one thing I could look at is India has been a country, all these years been focusing on teaching. Fortunately, last 3-4 years, I would see a fundamental shift, be it from the college or the educational ecosystem, has changed from teaching towards learning, right? Which is good. And one good thing happened during the pandemic. I think the transformation of education, the teaching and learning pattern has fundamentally changed. It has been demonstrated. So technology is no more a barrier for anyone. That has been proven enough. So having said that, today, every industry, for example, I'm sure the teachers, the faculty members would have worked with the industry. You may be working on a lot of R&D projects. So in the industry, we call something called customer experience. You would have come across the word CX, right? So the education industry, the academia is also moving towards that aspect. It's called as SX, students experience. I think the students experience is going to be a fundamental formula for the success of any institution for the next 1 decade. Take my word, this is not just a thought that I'm sharing over in this crowd, but this has been a proven factor with the global survey, with the global research between the top universities, that student success is going to be the fundamental measuring criteria for determining any institution. Okay, so what is institution success is all about? So the institution success is all about the faculty success and the student success, which is the teaching success and the learning success, right? So the combination of these three things will be purely derived out of culture. The reason why I'm saying, my dear professors, after a hell lot of research by Forrester, by McKinsey, and a couple of other surveys, the Global CEO Index, they identified what is the biggest challenge the industry is facing. The reason why I'm quoting industry, because the outcome of every student, why somebody is joining Jyoti Nivas College, maybe a better education, a good exposure towards what's happening in the global industry, of course, lovable faculty members. At the end result is the outcome is what? They have to get a good job, right? They have to be a good organization. They have to be good entrepreneurs, right? So what will take them towards is a good culture, right? Having said that, today, the fundamental shift that is moving from teaching to learning, where the student's experience is going to be measured, I think the 10 key things have been identified during the top CEO industry survey. You may wonder, these companies are from the technology, manufacturing, mechanical, hospital, various sectors. You know, interestingly, everybody would think technology is a major expectation. Unfortunately, that's the least priority, or the core skills, I would say, the core skills, be it a mechanical or a chemical or a civil or a physics, chemistry, biochemistry, it's all a core skill. And of course, now technology is an horizontal, right? Now technology is no more vertical. So since that is the reason I'm using word technology, that is the least expected. You know what is the top 9 items? Which is empathetical skill, which is critical thinking, cognitive ability, effective communication, respecting the fellow students, respecting the fellow workers. I think these are the fundamental things with the global survey says we are lacking. They're seeing the students are lacking in that. I think if we said that, I think the only people who can set that is apart from the parents are the faculty, because parents are like part and parcel of life, whereas the faculty members are looked at as a gurus, right? So I think the faculty members, the care, the love and affection, the intensity of the opportunity to talk to your students will only make that fundamental shift, because in Tamil they say "Aindil valayadu, aimbadil valayadu." What it means, if you don't get something culture nurtured in 5, in 50, you can't do that. But in my view, that is possible by the faculty members, especially when they become teenagers. I think the cultural shift is possible by making the fundamental changes that are imbibed in the college. I will pause here because I have it is a very passionate subject. I can't stop sharing multiple views, but I will pause here, give opportunity to rest of my speakers, and in my next turn, I'll share more perspectives. Thank you, Dinesh.
Thank you, Bala. Actually, you touched upon the nice dimension and the current status as well. I think that's one thing which is much expected, how the student community gets groomed up in the basic like schools and college level is. And it's nice that you brought out the survey as well. So, Professor, what's your view, and how do you think you accept to both what John and Bala said?
Oh, thank you, everyone. And again, an honour to both be here speaking with John and Bala as well, and to the people that I can see there, both digitally and physically. And I think that's an important point, actually. I can pick up, again, it's my passionate topic. So where do I start? I was writing very quickly to pick up on points there. But I think something that's really relevant is the fact that we do have students that are sitting there physically, and we've got a vast range of students that are here digitally. And I think that's important when we talk quality and we talk culture. Because the one thing that digitisation, and particularly, of course, the last 2 years or a bit over 2.5 years since COVID, we know, for example, that we've escalated digital change by 21 years in the last 2 years. But in educational institutions and in other government institutions, we've escalated that digital change, what we call vertiginously or vertically, by greater than 40 years. What that's done is that's created an environment that means students, but also staff and universities and employers and all the other stakeholders in education have now got a digital world that's international and global to choose from in terms of quality. And of course, all of those institutions that are delivering education have to deliver a culture to retain their students. So whereas before you had and I love the term brand ambassador for an institution, there now is no longer a single institution, it's the world. So how do you retain, well, first of all, how do you attract? And then, of course, how do you retain students based on a quality of what they're looking for, which is going to be very individualistic. But, of course, how do you create a culture that retains the interest, but also, the lifelong learning culture that we want to develop within the student world? And so I think that's important. Our environment has dramatically changed. And again, most people, you will tell that I'm Australian, but I live in the UK. If I give Australia as an example, it used to live on the, sit on the top 50 in terms of education. It was way up there towards the top. It's slid off that top 50 now based on student experiences and based on the quality of experience, not just the quality of education, because I don't think that's changed, but the quality of experience has significantly changed for students. And of course, the last 2 years in Australia's position in terms of COVID-19 hasn't been helpful in that. So I think that's a good indicator of how quickly you can slide off that, that level and why students would choose an education as opposed to, an education institution as opposed to another. And I think there's another important measure in this, and not many people would be aware of it. There's actually a measure in the world of trust. It's called the Edelman Trust Barometer. And it's at the moment at a stage of being bankrupt. And that's the term that they're using. And the Edelman Trust Barometer is a measure of pretty much the same countries that are in the United Nations, about 193 nations around the world. And in those countries, they see institutions and education institutions are mixed in that as being bankrupt in terms of trust and the trust that we can place in their quality and their provision of services to enable the passage of my life, through the next 20 or 30 years. So I think that's important. I think that's really critical that the environment has changed. I do also pick up on the point that we have definitely changed from what I would call broadcast education to delivering a culture of lifelong learning. So an education institution is really only the seed of thought that continues further on into our skill-based learning. And I think that the third point, and again, it's my favourite topic over the next hour or so, we'll talk about many things, but one of the things that I am renowned for is over the last sort of 10 to 15 years, I've done mapping of what I would call the 21st century skills. Now, I call them transversal and psychosocial skill sets. These are the skill sets that Bala spoke about, where things like digital technology, we need to have critical thinking, we need to have international engagement, we need to have great communication skills, we need to have passion, we need to have creativity. There's a whole grouping of these, and I can share those with students if you want. But each educational framework around the world, we used to call them employability skills, and then we realised, well, actually, they're different now because we understand that when we're working in a digital world, we need to be able to have engagement skills. How do you engage digitally? How do you create a culture of people, working who may never physically have met each other? And those 21st century skills are still yet, although we're 22 years into the 21st century, are not being embedded in educational programs. They're not being assessed. It's always argued they can't be assessed, and I say that's wrong. They can be. that means we haven't shifted our educational framework to develop those skills and assess those skills. And I would say, and given the importance of women in this conversation, that is a critical area of improvement that is required for us to deliver on quality, because those skill sets are in very high demand, and we know women in particular attain huge volumes of those skills that need to be assessed and valued and included in their education. So I think that's very, very key. We did used to call some of these things hard and soft skills. Now, those two terms alone will tell you the discrimination that's been based around those skill sets and the importance of them, because we used to say that the hard skill sets were the technology ones and all of those sorts of things, and the ones that were very tangible, and the soft skills were the ones, well, they were the things that came from women, the things that just made us nice people. Well, they're not. We've determined that they're critical. So I don't use those terms any longer. They are transversal and psychosocial skill sets that every single person needs. So again, I could go on and I'll stop there, but I think there's some of the key trends that I think that are there, and I think they're very critical in this conversation. The environment's changed, the skill sets have changed, we aren't addressing those, and I think for us to truly move to a point of quality and culture, we need to address those areas.
Thank you, Professor. In fact, it's very motivating how so much things have come out just with the first question itself of what is quality and culture, and it gives me even more interest to ask more questions now, because with the level of introduction shared on these two words, I think we can go with the main part of the requirement for the day. So when you talk about the quality and which is subjected to today's topic and the culture, so anyone would describe a quality assurance system or a program as something which is internal, which has some parameters on it, which does have a checkbox to be done, or an external parameters which is supposed to be done, and further goes with an accreditation board. So in your views, what is exactly is an effective quality assurance system? I'll start up with Bala.
All right, thank you, Dinesh. Probably I would defer this question to John and Lisa to answer, because and moreover, the faculty members who are present in the forum, I think they're all extremely capable to talk about quality assurance system, because I'm not a practitioner. So I may not give a right answer for what to do with in terms of accreditation, what is needed to become a good quality assurance. So I may not going to talk about that, because I can't teach the professors. I mean, they are really great people and they've been doing this. But rather what I would say, where is the impact of that quality? See, I mean, every effort that you're put in has some quality. I think you are measuring the quality. So whether these quality are meaningful, the effort that you're putting are meaningful, measurable, whether the outcomes are manageable, I think that's the fundamental question I would like to place towards the fraternity. Right. So every faculty member provides a quality education, and the college provides a quality infrastructure. Of course, the NAC and NBA, of course, NBA is for the course, but NAC provides various ratings. Today, I feel honestly, the NAC ratings are not managed properly. I mean, we just do for the purpose of rating. I mean, I've been talking to the NAC chairman and NBA chairman. Why don't we make a dynamic measurement of these ratings? I mean, that's a different topic, but anyway. For me, the outcome matters, right? As I said, the manageable, measurable, meaningful outcomes, that is out of how do you engage the students, right? So basically, whether the faculty members are understanding the students' involvement, which guides the students' experience, whether they're enhancing the level of the student engagement, whether are we helping the students to invest in their own success. I think the student success, students' experience, students' engagement, I think these are all the fundamental outcomes of the outcome-based education, which today, when till 2014, India was a temporary member in Washington Accord, which it took a lot of efforts for us to become a permanent member in Washington Accord. Still, in my view, we are not up to the level of holding the permanent membership in Washington Accord. And glad this national education policy is helping on outcome-based education, where we are ending up with quality assurance and all those things. I'll give one example. In one of the institutions, I mean, that institution has all the IIT professors, okay? And that institution has been teaching the full stack development. You know how hard full stack is today in the industry. Unfortunately, a 2 years experience guy call himself today full stack. That's a different story. That's an industry problem. But fundamentally, the faculty members knows what full stack is all about. But unfortunately, today, our faculty members does not have the capability to embrace what is full stack. They can teach what is full stack, but they never undergone the experience of full stack. So in my view, if somebody is not experienced what is full stack, how can you expect them to teach the students a quality full stack courses, right? So my fundamental argument is the college, the management have to invest enormous amount of mandatory financial viability as well as the time constraint, the time for the faculty members for the faculty development program. That is very, very important because learning is consistent, learning is continuous. Every faculty member have to spend a certain portion of mandatory training to enhance their skills in whatever subjects, whatever area they want. I think that is what the quality learning will emerge actually. In my institute, in our institute, since I'm a chairman of IIIT, I've ensured 50% of the faculty members, they can spend only 50% in teaching. I've ensured 20% they must spend on faculty development program, 10% on student engagement, 10% on their research and development, and 10% just leave it to them, whatever they can do. I think this is an example I'm sharing. I'm not quoting this is how an institution should function, but somewhere a balancing should be done because all the time faculty members cannot be put a pressure to get the result. All the time they can't focus only on getting the good result, but rather they should also engage themselves. They should develop their own skills. I think that will result the quality assurance. Sorry, I mean, this is not philosophical. Again, this is purely out of my experience working on the triangular ecosystem, industry, academia, and the government, and which I've been sharing my views in the national education policy. I'm a part of NETF forum. I've been continuously insisting the faculty development program and the student academia industry engagement have to be mandatory. One thing I want to just again share about this thing is today the paradigm of education is totally shifted, right? So from the widget making to change making, the change is no longer linear and faster, but it is explosive and omnidirectional, right? Having said that, today 65% of the jobs that are present today will not exist over a period of 10 years. So which means today if somebody, a school student is undergoing a grades 3, 4, 5, when he is going to come to a college, these jobs, 60% jobs won't exist. So again, the quality assurance come in, right? The quality assurance is not just the infrastructure, not just the curriculum. It is beyond that, right? I will put this thought and I'll pause here.
Thanks for that thought, Bala. In fact, maybe I'll be asking the right person or professor.
Yeah. Some absolutely great points there, Bala. You sort of really passed the gauntlet to me because these are really areas that I get on my soapbox and talk about a lot. I'm going to give you some tangible examples actually. So I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the quality assurance systems. If I can give you a tangible example, I think they've become tick box exercises, and I'll give you a couple of examples. So one of the things I did back in Australia a number of years ago was I sort of took on head on the Australian Skills Quality Authority, or ASQA, which is the organisation, and there's a tertiary one called TEQSA, who do the accreditation for educational content and curriculum and programs through our vocational and our higher education institutions. And I deliberately actually took on ASQA and decided to register my own vocational college, which is the equivalent of like a technical and further education college, etc. And they had 7 standards to address, and they had these checklists that they required organisations to address. And one of them was a whole standard on appeals and complaints by students. And when we got to our accreditation assessment to be registered as a college, the assessor, the auditor, came in, and first of all, we challenged him alone because we said, well, you're coming onto our site, here's our work health and safety checklist, you need to complete this for us because you're actually coming onto our work site. And he looked at me and said, no one's ever asked me to do that. I can't possibly do that. And I said, well, actually, this is the real world. You are assessing our organisation on the mandatory embedding of work health and safety skills in every single educational piece of content that we have. And you don't actually realise that the real world has to do this. So I challenged them on that before they even walked on site. But the second thing that was most important was the one about appeals and complaints. And he says to me, where's your policy on appeals? And I said, I don't have one. And he said, you must. And I said, no, the standard says I need to address appeals and complaints. It doesn't say I have to have a policy on one. I said, because my theory is, why would you wait till the end of a 3 or a 4 year degree or a 2 or a 3 year program and have your student lodge an appeal about the content and the quality and the excellence of what you have just delivered? Wouldn't you want a process to ensure that if a student or a member of faculty or anybody else in the ecosystem of delivering this education, there is a process to resolve those problems before they finish their program, so that when they get their quality education, they will be happy with the content that you've got. So I said, here's our process on managing concerns and observations, and I can't remember the exact title of it now, but basically it was, if there was a concern that a student raised or a faculty member or an employer or somebody in the stakeholder of education raised, it had to be addressed, and there was times, there was an urgency and there was things there that had to be addressed within 48 hours. And so I said, I've eliminated the need to have an appeals policy because I'm going to address those before I hand that educational qualification out. And he looked at me and went, but no one else does that. I said, correct. I said, because quality assurance has become a tick box exercise. And so I said, there's a different way of thinking, and I use a word called neoteric. Neoteric thinking means to think differently. Don't just get a tick box exercise with quality, because that is not making or creating a quality environment. That's creating a checklist to cover myself when I failed. What I want to do is create excellence in education. I don't want to hand out a degree or an advanced diploma or a graduate certificate or a master's without that. So I think that's a critical point. Don't wait till the end, address the challenges that you might have, and we all will. So I think that's key. I think the other thing that I would like to pick up on is exactly the point that Bala made in terms of our educational institutions are not requiring professional development from the educators. And, you know, I can give you some statistics. I think this is an important one. 3% of our board members, our faculty advisors, our senior people in the economy, both in education and the economic world, 3% have information technology and digital technology and technology skills. Less than a quarter of that 3% have skills in blockchain. You cannot possibly have educators with that level of skill, knowledge and technical and digital skill set educating our future of our workforce and the future of lifelong learning. It is impossible. And therefore, you know, I've been on so many webinars and lectures and so forth where I still see death by PowerPoint by leading professors and academics. And when I look at their death by PowerPoint, I'm also seeing half their face, up their nose, dark screens, and we're 2.5 years in post-COVID. Now, these are supposed to be the state-of-the-art educators that we've got, and they haven't even got a grasp on digital technology skills. How can you possibly say that they're delivering quality in curriculum of anything? I don't care what the topic is. And to your point, Bala, you know, in terms of can they deliver, you know, action-based learning in terms of full stack or digital technology? I'm currently involved in writing a new master's program for Navitas globally. And one of the things that I've said is you cannot produce students who don't physically have practical, pragmatic, action-based skills where they've engaged with industry, not with academics who, let's face it, honestly, most academics have gone to school, and gone back to school. And not one of them have actually got industry experience. I'm very proud to say that my professorship and my doctorates are industry-based. I do not have a PhD that's been done by research. I've done it through industry experience and through industry learning. So I've run businesses, I've designed systems, I've got patents, I know what it's like. That doesn't happen enough. So if we're going to start to have quality, we need to push these academics out of these institutions where they're protected by research and vast sums of money that are being put into research that, I'm going to be really honest, serves no purpose because it sits on a shelf, because it hasn't even been ideated with business. We need to push them out and get some PD, and we need ongoing PD in these skill sets and these skill areas. One, of course, is in how we deliver learning digitally. If you put a presentation up and it's death by PowerPoint on a screen, that is not delivering digital learning. And so I think that's, these are sort of key points. So I think if we're going to truly have a quality system, we need to change our thinking about what that looks like, not just a tick box exercise. So we do need to have our educators engaged with industry. That means that we need to start to see things like professorships and PhDs and all of those sorts of things coming from and delivered by industry experts, which up until recently, unless you physically had a PhD, you couldn't even get on staff at a university. And now that's wrong, because you can have people out there that have got 30 and 40 years experience and they can't educate students within a university. So I think, these are some fundamental shifts. There was an interesting question, and I'll just very briefly answer it in this because I think it's relevant to this point, is when we're talking, for example, and I was asked to deliver some strategy to Westminster Parliament, to the UK government, on how blockchain, for example, would impact education. And I didn't deliver what they thought. I said, well, I'm going to break it up into 3 areas. I'm going to break it up into the business of education. In other words, how this technology can enhance, shift resources, make education institutions more quality focused, more efficient, be able to use their resources better and so forth. Secondly, I'm going to do education shift the way that we deliver education so that we can actually deliver it in a different way. For example, have students and learners earning a living when they're educated. In other words, we need to value education, and we need, instead of students paying to be educated, we need to be paying students to be educated. And we can do that if we use things like blockchain and tokenization and so forth. And the third thing is we need to be educating people about the technology and digital change and what it means in terms of the philosophy of education. And they didn't quite get that. So I think the reason I bring that comment in at this point is one of the questions was that we are focusing learning a lot on students from poor or low socioeconomic backgrounds, as we should. And that, by the way, includes women. And if we talk IT, we've got less than 14% of women in the industry. It's a critical industry, and yet we've still got education institutions who are not attracting women into digital skills and IT skills. Unless we use technology to change the fundamental business model of education, again, I would argue we aren't delivering quality because we aren't valuing education. We are shifting resources in vast amounts to students who, yes, cannot afford education, but what we should be doing is we should be shifting that around so that every single person is non-discriminated in education, being paid for education by using technology and changing a different model. E.g., there should not be an educational institution that is not issuing their credentials on a blockchain. And you might think, well, that doesn't change much in terms of shifting resources. It changes quality because obviously we can value and we can authenticate the credential. But what we can also do in behind that is we can shift a process called moderation, which every educational institution does. If we actually shift that credentialing onto a blockchain and we have the content and the processes and the way we educated, authenticated autonomously on a blockchain, we've actually eliminated 30% of educational costs in the institution. And that 30% could be shifted to educate those who do not have an education. And so, I think the real hard questions are not being posed to education institutions yet.
Thank you, Professor. That was quite in brief. Before John, I could come to you. I would like to just pause for a minute and ask if there is any questions from the audience and the student community. So we touched upon what is quality, we touched upon what is culture, we touched upon what is what constitute a good system over here. So any questions is welcome. We'll take 1 or 2 questions from here if it's any, and we can move forward.
Thank you, Dinesh. There are a couple of questions from the audience. If the culture of the campus is highly political or based on relationship, it is too structural, how can we launch a change in that particular environment?
Thank you, Doctor, for that question. John, you want to take it?
Oh yeah, I think when students, I talk a lot of talk to a lot of students, and in the last 6 months alone, I've trained over 36 interns and who are transitioning from campus to career. And the biggest challenge they have about the academical environment is there are a lot of dirty things that happens. It is not only happening in the department, in the academic department, anywhere, right? It happens in the family, it happens in any department, but these students are being influenced into such kind of a toxic environment. And then they kind of, they try to ensure that they please people, please professors, please lecturers, they try to balance it out. They ensure that they don't get into crossfire, and then survive the environment and then come out. And then in addition to that, whatever Professor Lisa said, they have to build their skill sets, ensure that they are ready for the campus to career transitions. All these things they have to manage at an early stage of their phase of life, right? So it is very important for the institutions to build a transparent feedback system, a peer review system, right? It happens in the corporate world. For example, I'll choose Amazon, who kind of who has an interview system where there are 6 different people from different departments interview for a position, and then it is not only the hiring manager who takes the decision. So they go through a phase where all the 6 people provide feedback on the candidate. Then the hiring manager adds the feedback, and then the HR adds the feedback, and finally the person is hired, right? So I'm just talking about the hiring part of it as well. Now look at today I was reading this morning about Law University in India, where an RTA, right to information, was filed from 2010 to 2018. All the gold medals awarded were given to people who were known to the professors and lecturers. So now you are talking about a very toxic environment. How would you generate good citizens? How would you generate people who would be change makers and innovators? How people would be very transparent with their co-workers and subordinates when they are coming out of that environment? Right. So it is very important for you to build. You need to create a very big paradigm shift. I wanted to ask how many semesters have ended, or how many semesters have started where professors go back to the student and say, how was the last semester? What did you gain? What value you added? Did you grow personally and as a personality? Where do you see we lack? Is there anything that we can do better this semester? Can we, how many semesters have started that way? Now we talk about students talking to industrial experts. How many sessions faculties talk to industrial experts? How many interactions per semester that you spend hours, minimum hours, with the industrial experts to understand whatever Bala said, Professor Lisa said about blockchain and full stack technology. Leave about it. How many times professors and lecturers have gone out and said, how is the performance appraisal system in the industry? How do you recruit? What values you expect from the students? Bala was stressing on empathy. Professor Lisa was talking about conflict management or critical thinking. I'll tell you, when the students come out, they don't know how to negotiate. We ask in the interview, okay, what salary you need? They are not confident. They don't know how to influence. They are not telling us actually what they want. There is very much self-awareness is very less. So it all comes back to the toxic environment I'm talking about. Because if the environment is built up, focused on learning, growing, enhancing values and skill development, then there is no time for toxic discussions. But if that is influenced by toxic backbitings and influences and a lot of things that is not relevant to building a student to the next phase of life, then they get influenced by that environment. And then they come to the workplace and they do the same thing. They become managers and leaders, and that is what they do in the workplace as well. Being partial, being biased, not empowering women. In college, we don't allow them to talk to male and female. And then in workplace, we come and say we collaborate. We ask them to synergize. We ask them to take decisions together. How would they do? So this is where I would stop and allow Bala to talk about it.
Yeah, very interesting thoughts, John. Thank you for that. See, I put this way. I mean, today organizations are becoming more horizontal.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying the reporting structure doesn't exist, but reporting structures are more on the coaching perspective or moving forward the organization perspective. It's more horizontal. So when an organization is becoming more horizontal globally, I think institutions also should become more horizontal, not hierarchical. Right. Today, the student should have the comfort to reach to a faculty member and express his views as he wants to. I think if that culture, that's what I said, no? If the teenagers are able to get the right culture set up at the college level, I think it's going to be easy for the organization because they're going to be more successful. Today, as John said, the students does not know what to ask. A fresher or a 1 year, 2 year experienced Android developer who's probably with 3 to 5 lakhs of salary is asking 20 lakh salary today, right? This COVID has made them to get totally confused. They don't know what is collaboration. They don't know what is culture. I mean, that's what I said. Today, moving from hierarchical to horizontal organization or institution, and also knowing how to appreciate others. Right? I think that's something fundamental thing only a college can teach them. How do you appreciate? Even in school, you can't let the students to appreciate another student. That's much over expectation towards the student's age. But at the college level, students may be taught to appreciate others. Right? Create an appreciation session, right? So that every good things about other students, his friends, can be spoken over an open environment. And talk about entrepreneurial mindset, because today entrepreneurs are one profile which will come across multiple aspects of humans' life. I think make entrepreneurs, or in fact invite the failed entrepreneurs, because the lessons will be more. Your students will learn more from the failed entrepreneurs. And also basically, so how to be transparent. I think this is something fundamentally very, very important, because today organizations started practicing open culture. Transparently go and talk about, even today you can go and complain about your own manager. You can go and complain about your own CEO. That is how today organizations have evolved. In fact, in IIIT, I've actually ensured the students give the feedback on the faculty every semester. It is it could be an anonymous feedback as well. Yeah, of course, there are a lot of challenges. I'm not saying that's the right formula, but somewhere we are trying to see where the feedbacks are passed on to the faculty members so that they get an opportunity. Out of, say, 10 points, 5 could be genuine and 5 could be ingenuine, which I agree. But at least the 5 genuine points might get an opportunity, the faculty member, to set the things right, keep the ball rolling over for the next semester. Yeah.
Professor, do you have any thoughts to share on that? I think John very nicely talked about the political and the lackness with the student culture. So your thoughts, Professor, on your experience?
Yeah, look, I agree with everything that's been said, and I'll just expand on that again. And I suppose, you know, I can base this on my long experience in being both educated and an educator, is that, yes, I do think that the educational world and the way that we are developing a quality of education, how we're assessing it, and certainly the outcomes is definitely, when I say political, it is very driven in many ways by the educators themselves. For example, a student, when they get their resources and their mandatory readings, usually always includes a textbook by the actual professor that's delivering the actual education program. And unless the student can regurgitate the thinking and the beliefs of the professor, then they're really pushing, you know, the boat uphill, really, and upstream, to argue a different point. And so I think, yes, again, I'll talk about the master's program that I'm developing. I've said there shouldn't be fixed resource reading. We should be showing learners where to go to get information so that they actually have a very broad understanding and a very broad and rich development of being able to critically analyse material that they find, for example, in online resources. So it could be that they have, you know, lots and lots of articles and lots of readings that they get from a variety of social media places, for example. The skill set we should be giving them is how do we analyse that and make sure that that information is factual, what's the source of it, etc., and how can I strategically bring all of that thinking together. So the political basis is often that the programs, rather than educating on the real world, are educating on the content of the thinking of those professors that have written texts, and I would say largely wanting to, you know, to promote their own thinking. And so I think we've got to be very, very careful that education has changed now. It's not a set of textbooks. It's not a set of things like that. And again, I'll give an example. I've got a close colleague who's been teaching at the head of economics in South Africa, one of the big leading universities in South Africa. And I was having a discussion with him around, again, it was digital technology skills and so forth. And then all of a sudden he stopped. And again, at this particular point, I was talking about the embedding of digital technology capacities in the way that the business of education can change. And he actually just stopped. And he was really emotional. He said, you know what? He said, I've just realised for the last 20 years, I've been mandating to my PhD students Keynesian economics. And he said, and Keynesian economics is irrelevant in the current socioeconomic environment. He said, what I haven't been teaching them is how do decentralised autonomous organisations work? How has the economics changed? How has economics manifestly changed? What is the richness of the historical aspects of Keynesian economics, but what has changed? He said, but I've been indoctrinated to stand up and teach the same thing year after year after year after year, and I haven't changed. So I think, you know, politically, yes. I'll give another, and I like to give tangible examples because I think these are the things that need to be challenged. My daughter at the moment she's the director of nursing at one of the biggest university hospitals in the UK, the second largest in the UK. And she's studying her master's at the moment in education because she wants to move into education in the health industry. And one of her last assessments that she put in was around leadership and how she's used her leadership styles to effect change in a rapidly changing critical health environment. And when she wrote her piece, her assessment was a 4,000-word assessment, and it was 8 words over the 4,000. It was 4,008 words. And she was 10% of her mark was taken because of 8 words. And the words that the feedback that she got was, if you're over your word count, then that's telling us that you can't be succinct in your writing. And I went, and she'd obviously given it to me to review. And I said that couldn't be further from the truth. So when we've got educationalists and you know, we've got quality measures on whether you're 8 words over a word count or whether you put a full stop or a comma in a reference list, that is archaic, and that is definitely not delivering quality in education, and certainly not creating a culture of 21st century learning. So I think political, yes, and I think political, it's almost, and I would see it this way, and this is probably an interesting point, like whenever we have change and a fundamental system that we've hung on to for 100 years, and education hasn't had a revolution for over 100 years, we're still doing this whole broadcast education thing. What happens is those who are in that system want to hang on to, they're very resistant to change. They're wanting to hang on to the processes that they've done because that's all they know. So they will be very resistant to acceptance of change. And I think that's the precipice that we're sitting at the moment. We can push back and we can hang on to those archaic and traditional ways because it almost, in some ways, you know, as we've spoken about, the educationalists don't want to embrace change, don't want to do new things. It means they're going to have to learn as well, rather than just be sitting in that status quo. So I do think we're sitting on a precipice where there is a resistance to change, and I will see very soon the drivers of change are going to be the students, because they can go anywhere in the world to get their education. And so I think the drivers will be the students. I think the students will push back on those political, academic, archaic processes, and they'll basically walk with their feet, because if that's what's considered quality, then it's not a good measure. And it's to the point. There's a question I know it was emailed to me before on the difference between reactive and responsive quality in education, and I think that's exactly this. Responsive means that we are moving with change and we are responding to constancy of change. We're creating resilient and agile education that's working with industry. E.g., PhD should not be ideated within the university, they should be being ideated with industry, and they should be being ideated with small to medium enterprises, which constitute 96% of the economy. They're not. So I think, responsive means that. Reactive means resistant to change, and we are reacting to, the challenge of the world that we've known education to be and holding on to it. Reactive is not a way of producing strong, resilient education. If you think about it, education, and when we talk entrepreneurship and innovation, we're teaching students that when you go out in business, you need to have agile businesses, you need to have resilient businesses, you need to have digitally savvy businesses, and yet we're not doing that in education themselves. So I think that's where I see it to be responsive. Education needs to take a leaf out of the book of what industry is having to do, e.g. the last 2.5 years, and I don't think we are yet, but I think students will be the driver of that, and it will change that political environment.
Thank you, Professor. I'm going to make a little bit shift over here and ask a question with John. John, when you talk about this campus culture as a topic, social media has been a major instigator, I would say, playing a major part on it. How do you think campus culture is influenced by social media?
Very, very large, very large. I know everyone's palms, every student's palms is filled with at least 15 apps, right? Giving them opportunities to get engaged all 24 hours. Okay, they don't have time, right? So they are engaged in different social media platforms in different ways, trying to find their own identity. I'll tell you one of the reasons why they go to that apps. They don't have the platforms in their college and schools to find their identity, right? So they are trying to find that in the social media platform, right? And that is very true, right? I'll tell you, when we talk about social media, LinkedIn is a social media, right? But how many students who are transitioning from campus to career have a proper LinkedIn profile conversations, kind of, follow good write-ups. They start writing, they start yeah, kind of, building conversations, or they start posting their views, responding and engaging. Bala was talking about engagement, right? So social media is not all about Facebook and Instagram, right? But even that can be guided by the faculties, right? So that guidance can come from college. That there is a portal called Medium where you can write amazing articles, right? You can publish your views, you can contribute. No, but not many know that. So it is a very challenging time when their minds are kind of influenced by different social media expectations because of the peer pressures and because of the pressures that the posts that they see in the social media, and they wanted to reciprocate. They wanted to stand up and ensure that they also do something very similar to it, right? So it is a high pressure environment, and I think the faculties and the leaders in the institution should also be very empathetical about what kind of, and particularly in the last 2 years when there has been less face-to-face interactions from the professors and the students, and their engagement in social media has increased very much, right? I know students who started to earn in the internet world in various ways. So it is very important for us to bring back that interaction, bring back that engagement, the trust. I think Professor Lisa talked about the trust, and that is bankrupt. That is huge, right? If the student does not trust the institution, trust the department, trust their own professors and lecturers, the gurus, the mentors, to come up and share, okay? Why does South India, I can even say Tamil Nadu, is so high in suicidal rates? They should be going to one of you to talk, share, open up, right? Student suicidal rates are high. So it is very important for us to understand and be empathetical to the students' environment that they are being influenced currently, and then listen and open up, right? The most important factors is how do they kind of become empathetical to the customer needs in the future, right? You need to allow them to speak to strangers. Lisa was talking about school, from school to school, school to school, and college, and they go back to school. They are not talking to strangers at all. All these social media apps are telling them to talk to known people. How would they interact with Bala? How would they find out Dinesh or Professor Lisa or John to have a one-on-one conversation? Where is that platform? Where is that opening, the window for them to go and meet strangers, find new mentors, new coaches, then identify what are the new opportunities available in the world, apart from the subjects they study day in and day out? I think that is where social media can play a very positive role if they are guided properly. But as of now, they are all engaged with the more visible social media things, right? Instagrams and Facebooks, rather than the other social media which are empowering them, which can open them doors to great opportunities and great individuals all around the globe with the digitalization happening.
Thanks, John. That's a very valid point that's been refreshed over here. Bala, well, John touched upon the social media platform. I thought the economic background also plays a key role in terms of a campus culture. There are a lot of college and institutions which provide scholarship to the students. Some of them are government funded, government backed up. Well, some colleges don't have that government backup funding. So here is a challenge: how the college balances between the funding part at the same time providing scholarship. How do you think we can have a balance over here?
Yeah, I think being a country like India, this is very difficult to set this process. I can very well quote, because when I was a CEO of NYSL listed financial service company called Hire One, where we were dispersing the the federal government grants across 15 million students in the US. So we were running a bank just to disperse the students' grants, which is going to help the students to pay their hostel fees, college fees, and the leftover money they can spend on their own. Which means in the US, if somebody does a normal, say, community college, probably a monthly, for a semester, about $10,000 would be a sufficient money. Whereas here, is it possible for us to get a $10,000 for a semester? Absolutely no. Probably the professors who are seated in front of us know what is the UGC grants that's given for a PG student or an UG student. It's very minimal. So someone cannot run their course. The quality can never be achieved. Likewise, a lot of private scholarships are available. I think the fundamental problem is the ecosystem is not connected. The dots are not connected. Today, we don't have even within the region. For example, say this colleges in Bangalore. I don't know whether the ecosystem that is surrounded by the college, how many such facilities, how many sponsorships are available, how many trusts provide such sponsorship to the student. These fundamental database is not available. I think probably college can take that initiative and create a repository, be a front runner and set the tone that these are all the various opportunities available. Tie up with the NGOs, create a dictionary, create a knowledge repository about funding. But overall, the government fundings are there. I think the knowledge is the key, Dinesh. I think various funding opportunities are available. I'm not saying it's not available, but we are not able to pull those details and put it in a common repository, which will be beneficial to the students today. And today, if you see the statistics, the higher education paradigm is totally changed. Students want more than the higher education, more than the degrees, and the academic cannot no longer priority for college student. Instead, they want to see they become a next Steve Jobs. They want to be a next Nikola Tesla. And they are very well known that degree is not required just for be a successful person. That's what the Google and PayPal's founders said so loudly, right? So one side is academic, the engagement. Another side is how do you become a successful student, a successful entrepreneur, or successful an employee. I think both these things need really a good funding. A financial assistance is much needed. I think one step back, the students does not have the financial acumen also, because today, even I've seen many college passed out students don't know that they should have a PAN card. They should have an account. How does a checking account and the saving account differs? Probably they may study in the college, but fundamental things that is needed for a practical life, they don't know what tax structure is all about if they're going to join in the industry. I think this financial inclusion education, which we created in the United States a few years back, that every student should undergo 120 hours of financial inclusion education that talks about how do they get the sponsors, how do they get the funds, how do they attract grants, how do they have a bank account, what is the importance of bank account, should they go for a credit card? So all this financial inclusion program is something, it is under the radar of national education policy, but it's not going to stop any college or an university to be a front runner in making this happen.
Thanks, Bala. Professor, I'm just going to ask you very briefly. We have one section of student community who come from a low background in terms of economic perspective, and their parents may not be educated as well. So they might be the first entry into the education system. On the other hand, we have much educated at a higher level people joining the college as well. So here we have an interaction with two different set of people, part of the culture. And obviously there is going to be ups and downs while there's a lot of interaction. At the same time, the level of involvement that becomes within both of them is going to be much is something which is not going to be easy in the beginning days. So how do you think we can improve this section of campus culture?
A really good question. it's never easy, but I think I often say this, that success is not based on the money that you have in your bank account. I think that's an important point. Success and the quality of your education is based on the person you are, the ethics, the integrity, the quality of the education, and so forth. When you are mixing, you know, I don't see the socioeconomic background that people come from does not change their receptiveness and their internal integrity and ethics and values and how they're going to use that education. I think this is probably, I'll give an example, again, I'll give an example, tangible example, I like that. So myself, I came from a very low socioeconomic background, regional area of New South Wales. And back in the 1980s, in fact, and I can see, you know, there's a room full of amazing women there being educated. When I finished school in 1980, my brother and myself, my parents, I actually wanted to study medicine, but my parents couldn't afford to send both of us to university, and males were prioritised because they were going to be the ones that had the career. And in fact, when I finished school, once you got married, you were not allowed to be employed and therefore educated. So my background was not one of affluence. It was not one of, you know, coming from parents who could pay to have me educated. But my driver was me, and my tenacity and my courage and my conviction that I wanted to be educated. And I've, you know, continued to carry that gauntlet right through my career. But you know, my point from that is that what was in my bank account and what I was told I could do or I couldn't do hasn't changed my level of education. So I think, what can we do more? We need to mentor, and we need to provide examples, and we need to provide and lead by examples by engaging more in providing that support of courage and tenacity and resilience and so forth in terms of the students of what they can achieve. You know, and that's not just from socioeconomic backgrounds. It can also be from areas of disability. It can be from areas of inclusion and all of those sorts of things. So I think, you know, probably goes a circle again in the sense that there needs to be more engagement with those who've come from those backgrounds and made a success of their lives through education. So I think it's taking away the discriminatory barrier of a low socioeconomic background and saying every single one of you have an opportunity to be educated, to use that education, to have strength and have a valued input in the economy. I think it goes to my point that I raised before, though, that educational institutions do have a responsibility moving forward, that money and where you come from in society should be seen as less as a deterrent. We should be doing more to shift resources so those who can't currently access education can access education. So I think there's a shift in resources required. So I think it's a balancing concept, but I think education should not be seen as something that's available for those who've got a lot of money in their bank account. It should be something that's available for everyone. Now, of course, the challenge we have, and you did raise the point, is that we also have some students who will be entering education that their parents may not have been educated, and probably their parents and their parents before that. So they'll be a first generation education, you know, participant. So, of course, that means that universities and educational institutions and, of course, schools should be engaging more with community. And so I think rather than being seen as, you know, iconic towers of, you know, untouchables, we should actually be going into community and working with those parents and working with those communities who've not been educated before and showing them how, in tangible ways, how education has changed and how we actually want to value and value the parents' experiences and the community's experiences. Because, again, They may not have been in formal education, but the wisdom and the richness of the learning that our students can gain from those communities is key and critical. So rather than seeing them as non-educated, we should be saying is they haven't got formal education, but we need to be going out into community to those parents who've never been educated before in those communities and saying, what's the richness that we can get from your experience and how can we bring that into the universities? What we want to do is take that and expand on it. Because there is a challenge in the sense that we are in many ways saying that if you haven't been in education because your socioeconomic background has been poor and you haven't had access to it, then you're not as valuable as somebody who's got an education formally. It's different, but I wouldn't say it's something we should cast aside. So I think, again, our thinking on the way that we have created these layers of, in many ways, exclusion rather than inclusion, we need to bring those people in rather than saying, well, they've not been educated and this is a first generation. They are. We need to show them why and how we can deliver education and we can balance what the richness of their life experiences are. So it's not an easy question to answer. I get that, and it's always going to be a difficult one. But I think we do, as a society, place a lot of emphasis on success being what's the amount of money that's in your bank account, not the person and what impact you make with your education. It may well be, and this is a good example actually. Women, for example, who are educated take 90% of what they earn and the impact back to their community. Men will take 41%. And I think that's an important point. So if we want the global domestic product and the economy to thrive, we again need to focus on women. And again, a lot of women in the past have been those who've been excluded from education. But we do know that they take more back to their community. They invest more back into their families and their communities and the value and the impact of what they've learned. So I think it's a conversation that needs to happen, and we need to do things differently again as well.
Thank you, Professor. John, do you want to quickly touch upon the next 30 seconds on the same topic?
I think in the corporate world, in the current organizational journey, we talk about inclusivity and diversity, right? And building an inclusive environment matters a lot. And that has to start from schools and colleges. It is not something that we, when they come in, then we talk about inclusivity and diversity the first time in an organization level, all right? So that is understanding life skills at the school and college levels. Understanding human values matters a lot, right? And I'll tell you, it is the most easiest environment where students, friends accept each other the same way. It is easy to teach in colleges and schools about inclusivity and diversity. It is easy because as we grow as professionals, we build conditions and expectations due to various societal and environmental pressures and the hierarchies and everything. But actually, those values that can be ingrained into the students at the early stage helps a lot in building great leaders. All right. I used to ask this question during an interview. Have you dialed 100? Have you contacted police control room? Have you ever dialed 108? Have you called an ambulance once? Have you ever saved a life? Have you ever stood at the road to help someone who's injured? I'll tell you, in a crowd of 100, 3-4 people will raise the hand. They've never even utilized the system built for themselves. A policing system, a Chennai corporation or a city corporation. There are a lot of things that is built for the citizenship and students have never utilized. Then they become family people and they will call one day in an emergency for a family member. So now I'm talking about life skills and human values, which is easy to inculcate in a college environment. But the time spent on those things are very less. So it is very important for the faculties and the departments to understand that these people go and kind of change organizations, build organizations, employ people. Change when they change one person in an organization, they're impacting the families, right? So it is very important for these young people to be allowed to lead in college itself, allowed to fail and fail big. It is not happening. And I'll tell you, when you're talking about socio-economic balance, people who come from the downward stream, I have a college in Chennai where the college starts only at 12 o'clock. They work in the night shifts, students sleep, and then come to study at 12 and finish up at 6, and then take rest and go back to work. The college has built a framework in such a way for allowing students to work and study. Can you look into it? Because once they start doing that, whatever Bala talked about PAN cards, whatever Bala talked about managing finances for their family, for themselves, they are learning simultaneously as they are students. They're managing their own expenses. They know how to spend, how to save. Now, all these things are now mostly introduced once they become the full-time employee in a company. Now they are being bombarded with so much of knowledge. You need to know PF, provident funds. You need to know ESI. You need to know medical insurance. And I'll tell you, 60%, 58 to 60% of freshers who join the first job quit the first job in 8 months. Because they are not ready. They are being asked to synergize between different genders and understand LGBTQ. No clue there. That is not discussed in college at all. So yes, so the college environment can change the way young people come out and impact society as a whole, globe, internationally, right? And become great leaders in the country, great leaders in the family and in the organizations. All that is need to be done is allow them to invest in themselves.
Thanks, John. Nice points touched over there. Bala, if I just move the shift a little bit over here on the main content over here. So what are your suggestions for the practices to enhance with regards to ethical work culture?
All right. So let me put these points, which could be a kind of a summary with whatever at least I've shared. One is the forward thinking, right? So let the professors set the example, have a forward thinking with whatever John mentioned on the basics, like the culture, understanding what the industry is undergoing. For example, some of the organizations have a unisex bathrooms. So the things are evolving. If the student get into the organization and if he's going to hear about lesbian, gay, LGBT community or diversity and inclusion, he's going to take a step back and think what's going on here. I think so. If you set that fundamentals right, or at least you set them, you give them a knowledge that this is what happened. So now it is boiled down towards the faculty interact with the industry. So you have that knowledge, what's going on in the industry, and you impart to the students. So I think so that is something very, very so forward thinking. Second thing is enabling the teaching learning process that change the entire ecosystem, right? Be it our national education policy could be a better framework to think through, but I think each faculty, with your experience, you can really evolve a very good teaching learning process for your institution. Third thing is academia think about the student success, which I mentioned, student engagement, student thing. And the fourth thing is success of the institution is going to be measured by the student success and not just by the ranks or the jobs. So of course, the rank and jobs could be looked at as a primary way to look at student success, but that's not the real student success, is the outcome. So I think please ensure, please give them an opportunity, the student, to say that just ranks and job is only one portion of their success, but the real success depends on the outcome, the value what an organization get out of the student. and promote research and development. And that's very, very important. Promote research and development. It could be in a small way, but try to do research and development so that when the faculty start doing an R&D, the students get an opportunity to think through. Academics is one portion of studying because the curriculum has been framed like that. Beyond that, something else is there have to be done. More importantly, as I said, faculty development program. I think this is something the industry, the institution management should pay an extraordinary attention. And of course, it should be another way. The faculty should also pay interest towards the faculty development program. And more importantly, I think John was mentioning about, and even Professor was mentioning, alumni engagement. I think this is something fundamentally lacking in India as a country. Other than the Premier Institute, most of the institutions don't have an right alumni engagement. Alumni engagement are not just to call them once in a blue moon and give them a snack and ask them to share their experience, but it's beyond that. I think alumni engagement speaks a lot to set the culture right, because that's the area where the youngsters, the present generation students get an opportunity, what they have learned, but what they are seeing, where is the gap and how that gap could be filled. And then we need to build the international visibility and the local engagement. Right, so we talk about all the things that's prevailing in the global system, but we should also try to link the global visibility towards the local ecosystem. So try to have a perpendicular impact between the globalization and the local engagement. And last, not the least, the community engagement like sports, culturals, involvement with the public, working with the government, working during the pandemic times. I think this community engagement is going to answer 50% of the fundamental problems a student is going to face or students are facing when they get into the industry. I think community engagement plays a major role. With these 5, 6, or 7 points, I think fairly I've done a job of sharing my perspectives towards this fraternity.
Thanks, Bala. Well, you listed out all the very important points. I'm going to challenge you on one point. Like, don't you think the current society just totally relies upon our, say, like major portion of the society just has this reliability on how much you scored rather than what have you become? So when you go home with your marks kit, or when you go home after your college in a semester, they're going to ask how much you scored from your neighbor. How much is that you scored from last semester? So that's the mindset
Exactly.
still we have. And that's the truth as well. While many colleges are trying to improvise, not just with marks, with the other benefits, still the household mindset is the same. So how do you think the professors or the student community can help in this area, and what do you think is required from a household area as well? Because all these are very important in terms of bringing that culture in the college.
I think again it's a triangular effect. The faculty, parents, and the student ecosystem have to keep think through and evolve. But it's more a top-down approach. That is how today the national educational policy over a period of time, I'm not saying it's going to impact now, but over a period of time, certainly the national educational policy will set this. Of course, it has a lot of pros and cons. I'm not supporting typically a national education policy, but I'm saying a lot of great things are there in the policy if it comes into place. Once if it is implemented, we will see the impact over a decade or so. Having said that, Dinesh, this is a country like India that has officially 120 languages. Now people spread across north to south and east to west. It's not so easy to make this fundamental shift very easily. But I see a shift is happening with this present generation. Leave about baby boomers, Gen X, but Gen Y parents started thinking about, they don't worry about the students. At least I'm a Gen X guy, but still I don't worry about my boys. I have 2 boys. I don't much worry about their academics. I just worry about their value system. I'm not just saying in front of, because of this conference, I just mean it. I ensure they come to me with every week to temple. I ensure they practice nothing, truth, nothing but the whole truth. I every Friday, myself, my wife, my boys, and my mom, I lost my dad recently. We spend 30 minutes every Friday evening between 9:30 to 10 o'clock in the night to talk about what went wrong this week. Everybody were okay. Did we irritated each other? So I think this kind of open conversation is set the right tone over a period of time. I'm not saying it's the right formula, but I'm trying it. It works out well. My boy today has the guts to come and say that, Daddy, I didn't do my exam well. And today, this morning, I woke him up to go to a temple because today is Adi month, first Friday. So I wanted to go to temple along with my mom. My mom said, my boy said, yesterday he went 6 o'clock to practice cricket, but today he said, no, I can't come. I want to sleep. I think this is the shift that will make over a period of time, being open, being transparent, allowing them to talk. Children should be given a freedom to let them talk nonsense, no problem. But over a period of time, this nonsense will become sensible. I think no. Again, there is no right answer for this. It is only a practice. We need to embrace this change. There are a lot of cultural challenges are also there. I'm not denying, especially when the Western world is coming into India for the work. A lot of global digital transformation. A lot of pros and balances are there. We need to undergo, accept right things. See, every people are unique. Every student is unique. So that uniqueness have to be respected. The policies, framework, everything is for a very basic, a primary governance. Beyond the primary governance, everybody's lifestyle, everybody's uniqueness have to be respected, and it has to evolve. It has to evolve over a period of time. But for that, the faculty fraternity plays a major role. I'm not throwing all the responsibility towards the faculty members, but certainly they play a major role, because in an organization, I always tell people, they used to say that you be happy at home so that you deliver good at work. I actually have a different thought, because consciously an employee 10 to 12 hours consciously is there at work. If he's not happy, his ecosystem is going to get disturbed. Likewise, that's applicable to the students, because consciously or subconsciously, they are in the college for about 10 hours or so, or 8 hours or so. If they are not happy, if they're not going to make sense in being there in the college or the system, they're never going to be happy, never going to be better anywhere in the ecosystem. So fundamentally, the college institution and the faculties have more responsibilities in terms of making this shift, especially during the teenagers phase.
Thanks, Bala. So Professor Bala has a direct proportion, like what happens in work as a culture, as a direct impact, either in office or in college. Do you accept with that, and do you have any points to challenge that?
Yeah, look, I think great points. I think I'm going to pick up a couple of points actually that John made as well. One, I think I love the term citizenship, and I think it ties in nicely to what Bala was saying there, that I think citizenship of our students and how they prioritise that, and how the education institutions prioritise that, and how in fact they capture that as part of their assessment, because I think that's really learning is supposed to develop citizenship. It's not about we're not job factories. Universities and education institutions should not be job factories. We are creating citizens of the world. So I love the term citizenship, and I think that's key. And I loved the concepts of that John. In fact, we've got an interesting career. So I've in my past life, I actually had I've studied medicine, so I've taught about 12,000 people CPR and first aid and so forth. And so, again, challenging our students on how they apply their knowledge and how it impacts others, rather than just being eye-focused or centred on what they are going to achieve, but how it impacts the community and how it impacts their country and how it impacts the world, I think is key. I think developing those citizenship skills so that we actually start to think about how we can support others best and so forth. And if we even go back to the previous question, how do we support people from a lower socioeconomic background? How do we compare? Well, those who've got a more affluent environment could well be sort of supporting those who don't. So I think citizenship is key, but I also want to bring in the point about social media, because I think that's important to this, because through the use of social media channels, we get the impact of some of these in the engagement with the world. We learn how to interact. We learn how to converse. We learn how to not have groupthink. Because if we're and Twitter, for example, I mean, to be honest, it's not many years ago, I'm thinking, why would anybody want to engage in this thing with 160 characters? One thing that I've learned about it is it actually is really good for removing groupthink and making you think about how you can respond in such a short period of time with tone and with conversation, with humility and with ethics, so you don't get involved in trolling and all sorts of other things. So I think the connection here between social media and learning and the engagement digitally, which again I would raise a point that academics don't do well, because most don't even have a LinkedIn profile, as you said. I think creating citizens is key. And so I think there is a very strong connection here between education institutions creating greater citizens and better citizens rather than just educated ones. Because unless they can apply their knowledge in the world, then I don't actually think we've achieved our job. So, you know, we don't want to create people that are highly educated but have no ability to communicate or impact, you know, either be their local community, their own family, or the greater community from those skills. So I think, you know, it is a 21st century skill. So I think it's key.
Thanks, Professor. So, John, you have been talking much on campus to career. So, if I have to just quickly ask, like, what would be as a corporate or as a company would be the requirement, or what are the campus culture experiences that develops or is expected in a corporate or a company? What would be your thoughts on that?
I've already listed few, but I can tell you that again, connecting the loop of Professor Lisa and Bala, how much of human problems each student have tried to solve during their academical career, right? The journey, right? Whether inside the college or in the community. So that kind of exposure has to be given to the students. The students have to go out and talk, go out and communicate with the community, the industrial experts. They can't be just seeing professors and faculties and lecturers alone, day in and day out. They have to go out. Let them execute, let them fail, let them learn. But my question to anybody who wants to join my team would be, okay, how much of human problems you try to solve? Whether being a class rep, or whether being a football team captain, or being a player in a cricket team. What did you learn, right? And that trying to find solutions or giving them an opportunity to find solutions matters a lot, because that is what is expected when you transition into a workplace. To find customer solutions, to find solutions for organizational problems, resilience, business continuity, people grievances. This is what they are expected to do, and they've not done that. Or they have not been exposed to such kind of opportunities. I'll tell you, I'm very busy in LinkedIn, and whatever I see from colleges and schools are biennial conferences, seminars. This is what is posted there. There is no testimonials posted like, okay, my student, ex-student, alumni who went and kind of, sorted out some problems, became a community leader, became a leader in an organization. There is no testimonials posted by the colleges. How many testimonials are posted by colleges apart from the routine activities of seminars and conference and biennial things that's happening? So students have to be exposed to finding solutions, right? On whatever way, at whatever level. If they are first years, to that level, second years, to that level. But they have to come onto the campus, right? And the other important thing is, I recently kind of asked a group of faculties. I am a board of studies member in few colleges. How many times as a group of faculties have you gone for an offsite? That department is 6 years old, okay? Not even once they have gone together outside as a team. The faculties are also always inside the campus. In that environment only. Why don't all the faculties in your department come for a visit to Cognizant? Only faculties. Spend half a day. No request, such kind of request comes to me or comes to anyone. January to March, April, the colleges knock the door for placements. And then again, they come back only on January to April. What happens the whole year? Or internship. How many MOMs are signed where you are asking the company, ensure you pay my intern? In India, so much of internships are done without payment. There is no paid internships. Less than 2% of internships are paid. Why are you not putting the organizations as owners to pay interns? All the MOMs mostly are focused on employment, job opportunities. If you take an MOM, you will say, oh, we are signing an MOM, ensure you get our students placed. That guy, girl gets placed, 8 months he quits. But we show a record that, yeah, we have placed someone. No. What is the sustainability of that student in the organization? What kind of impact the student had in the organization? So the important factor here is, Dinesh, I keep again and again saying that a lot of industrial experts has to be in the board of studies. And a lot of subjects has to be taught by industrial experts. Bala touched on it, or I think Professor Lisa touched on it, that you don't need to have a PhD to teach. Teaching is a passion. I spend more than 80 hours, 100 hours per year teaching. And the other thing is, people call industrial experts for free. Now, I run a department 24/7, 365 days. It is an emergency management department which monitors Cognizant 330 locations. I'm talking to you for 2 hours. Now, when you change your mindset, then your interns will be paid. Your college students will negotiate for salary. Anything, my dad used to say, don't ask cheap and best. Nothing best comes cheap. Which means an industrial expert's consulting, industrial expert's time doesn't come free. When you budget it for your department, speak to your management. Talk about it, raise it. For 2023-24, I've got a mail today morning to budget for my team. This is just July. How many of your departments are budgeting for the next year? Proactively. How many of your students are allowed as part of the budgeting of your department? Then they are expected to budget for a department when they come to workplace. So obviously everything starts from your department, 4 walls. Okay. That's it.
Thanks, John. Very lively points, I would say. There's a lot of I would say practicality over there, where many of you will accept over there as well. Well, Professor, is this the same that you want to see as well, what John explained, or is there something that you want to key in here and there?
Yeah, actually, there's 2 things. I think just to pick up on John's last point, I think that's absolutely fantastic, because while ever we still keep projecting the fact that people can work for free, whether they're an intern or whether they're a fully salaried employee, is not valorizing learning. And so we need to value interns, and they should be paid. Otherwise, it's in essence, you're asking people to work for free. So I think that is a shift in thinking. Interns, education needs to be valued. We need to shift the curve so that people are actually investing in education and investing in learning. That's both the student and the organisation and the business that are employing them as students. But I'm going to go back to another point that you talked about in terms of, the impact that students have and citizenship. I'm going to go back to that point as well that you raised. We are still presenting, and educational institutions are still encouraging learners to present curriculum vitae or CVs and resumes based around the STAR principle, and it's all about what I did, and not about leading teams. It's what part did you play in leading a team. You may not be the person that's created all the outcome. In fact, there's a funny story in this. Many, many years ago, I was asked to produce my CV many years ago, and I produced this 16-page book, and I didn't use the word I in it once, because that's just not what I'm like. I was part of a team that did this. I was part of a team that achieved this. And I was told by a colleague, no, you're going to have to go and rewrite that whole thing, because you need to use the STAR principle, where you start every sentence with, I did this, I did that, and I produced this outcome. That couldn't be further from the truth, because I didn't do it on my own. I did it as part of a team. And yet we're still encouraging employers and students and the system to produce CVs based on that. There's no value placed in, well, actually, what I did was I was part of a team, and that team achieved this outcome. I didn't do it on my own. It doesn't matter whether I led the team or whether I was part of the team. I was part of a team. So again, that's a different way of thinking, and that brings us back to, you know, producing good citizenships in education. But I think it also brings us back to the fact that our education has got to bring in employers and how we recruit and all of those sorts of things, so that we actually start to value those citizenship skills and those community skills and those collaboration skills and so forth. We use the words and we bandy them around a lot. You know, we throw them around like they're buzzwords, but we don't actually translate that to the processes that we're using to engage. You know, so, and again, I'm going to bring it back to women, because the focus here is in many ways on women's education as well. Is women do that in families. They're part of a family. They might lead the family, but they actually are part of a team. They're part of that family team and that community team, and those skills aren't valued. We've become very I-centric and I-focused, and that needs to shift back to, as John's point has been, you know, around citizenship and those skills. So I think there's lots of work to be done, but I think there's lots of, and as everybody knows, I'm an ecosystem thinker. You can't just change one part of the ecosystem. You've got to change the whole ecosystem, and you've got to shift that ecosystem. And in fact, my company that I it's my umbrella company that I use for all my work is called Arate Business Performance. Arate is a Greek word that means excellence of all kinds. It's a beautiful word, and I spoke about this at the Nobel Peace Laureates Summit a number of years ago as well, when I was educating 1,200 youth on their future careers. And I said the word Arate means excellence of, it's tied up in being the best person that you can. Not the best educated, not the richest, not the smartest, not any of those things, the best person that you can, morally, ethically, financially, educationally. It's tied up in that whole concept of that. And education, you know, literally we are still, you know, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to be the best. But we have to actually moderate that as to how we've fitted in, how we've collaborated, how we've worked with teams, how we've engaged. And I think the last 2.5 years is profound in that regard, because I'm working on a daily basis with people that I will physically probably never, ever meet. And the different skills that I have to have and the different skill sets that I've got to have to work with those brings in cultural awareness and digital awareness and communication skills and all of those sorts of things. They are not being valued. It's still about what I did and what I achieved and how much revenue I might have brought in and all those sorts of things. And I think that's not impact. It's not a measure of impact, which also brings in the concept of ESG metrics, or which have become profound in businesses these days. So we are seeing a shift to the concept of the importance of ESG metrics. And I think education needs to take a leaf out of the book, because education is a business as well, and yet they're not following what the rest of the economy, the global economy, is doing, and saying, well, how do we embed ESG metrics in our education curriculum, in the outcomes that we're producing? So I think there's some important shifts and some pretty hard conversations that educational institutions will have to have, particularly if they want to stay ahead of the innovation curve and stay being forefront where students want to enrol and engage because of that reason.
Thank you, Professor. I'm going to just stop, and we are running the last 5 minutes at the moment, and there's quite a lot of points that has been discussed and shared over here, and everything was a bit unique and somewhere transparent and somewhere quite surprising as well. So we had a mix of emotions and talks of work culture, which embedded both social, economic, and the realities that exist in the society and the expectations from the student community, from the teaching community. So we involved every bit of here and there that has made a part of this campus culture evolvement. So just to finish it off, in less than 30 seconds, what would be your closing remarks in 30 seconds, please?
I'll go first if you like. For me, it's engage with industry. Education needs to engage with industry and be industry-led, and they also need to engage with 96% of the economy, and that's the small to medium enterprises, and start to listen to what the economic needs of the communities are. So I think they're key.
Thank you, Professor. John, what would be your 30 seconds?
Summarizing, build human values, teach life skills, allow them to have an inclusive and fair environment in the college, right? Build a feedback system. As Professor Lisa said, there has to be a complete ecosystem change, not one change, and then other toxic environments will influence this one change. And again, you go back to the ground zero, and then you're unable to change. The years goes on and nothing happens, right? So there has to be a complete change, and that has to be stern, that has to be immediate, because that is impacting students' lives. Because,
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Bala, your 30 seconds.
Three things. I just wanted to close the remarks with empathy, collaboration, technology. I think these are the three things that's going to make things much better.
Well, we still have a minute. Just want to ask if there's any particular question that the management of the college wants to address, so that we have a minute, a round table with the experts over here. Is there any specific question, one question that the management wants to address or ask?
No, I think we've sort of had clarity. Thank you for this very exhaustive discussion. So I think we'll conclude the session. Thank you. So the successful planning and execution of a program rests on the efforts of many. And as we come to the end of yet another fruitful and illuminating session, it is my duty on behalf of the IQAC to express my gratitude to Mr. Dinesh Ilangovan, the moderator, Dr. Lisa Shotts, Mr. M. Balasubramanian, Mr. John Srimanathan, the panelists, for giving us their insights on practices that can enhance the quality of campus culture. I think all of them agreed on, coincided on the one aspect of student experience and faculty attitude that ultimately contributes to a healthy campus culture. So you've given us a lot of material to think about, deliberate, and possibly bring in changes accordingly. I also thank our principal, Dr. Sister Lalita Thomas, who is the brainchild behind the FTP, the IQAC coordinator, Dr. Carol Stanley, and the FTP coordinator, Dr. Rama Raju, and their team for organizing today's session and the sessions before. I also thank the technical team, because this is a hybrid or blended mode of FTP, and the technical team becomes crucial to the success of everyday session. I also thank the students from the Media Studies Center for covering the FTP. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Professor Lisa, and thank you, Bala. It was wonderful being part of it.
Thank you,
Dinesh.
Same here, John.